Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Screen Society podcast, a podcast that covers all things TV, movies, and everything on the screen. We are excited today because we are jumping back into the world of Westeros, heading back to the Game of Thrones series, and we got another brand new show to cover. A Night of the Seven Kingdoms debuted on Sunday, and I'm going to be joined by Jordan Wiegand of the Supes and Sabers to talk about this episode that starts us off in a new spot where we haven't quite ever visited before with the Game of Thrones saga. So throwing it over to Logan and Jordan, who will launch us into this brand new show. So I hope you guys enjoy.
And welcome to Supes and Sabers. My name is Jordan, and with me today is Logan. How are you today, Logan?
Hey, Jordan, I'm doing all right, man. It's cold here in the north.
Cold
so yeah, I've got the night watch. So it's been pretty frigid outside. So
you're used to that King's Landing.
Yeah, I'm used to those. Yes, very much so. I'm much more of a King's Landing. Jordan, if you had to pick a place to live, where would you live in the Westeros realm?
Probably
on the spot there.
Probably in Essos in the Free City.
Are you sure you can get away from it all?
Yes. Don't think I want any part of the
Can I come with you?
Constant battling over the throne. Yeah,
man.
But we are here talking today, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. As a preamble here, this is our first show we're covering on Supes and Sabers that is fantasy-based. Originally, we had a fantasy-based podcast called The Fantasy Folk that myself and Ron created. We did that for Rings of Power, and we talked a little bit of like the state of Game of Thrones after House of the Dragon season 2. And we fused all those shows into one. If you've been listening to Supes and Sabers, you of course know that by now. We fused our Marvel, DC, Star Wars, and fantasy shows into one podcast. And Ron couldn't make it tonight, so I've enlisted Logan here. I've knighted him. So he's going to be, though.
There's more than birds in a tree. In this dubbing process.
Hopefully, we have some more listeners than that. I was going to say though, you might be more like Egg with the hair. But
yes, thank you, Jordan.
I'm getting there though too. I have a spot like right here. So I know the pain, but yeah, thank you, Logan, for coming on and talking Game of Thrones, Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
Anytime. I look forward to this show more so than any of the shows I've watched recently. I mean, I was really invested in like the lore leading up to this, and I was going back and forth on whether or not to read through the novella, but I started listening. I started doing it. As I was working, I was doing the audiobook. So I've told you, but I've listened up to, because it's a little bit different in the way that it progresses through it. But I've listened up to where I think, because I started listening to things, I'm like, I haven't gotten there yet. So
there are a couple things that are changed in order that we'll probably talk about here. Some new scenes that are in this that are not in the book. But it is a novella. So if you're out there wondering if you should read it, like, it is 80 some pages. It is like 2 hours 45 on the audiobook, if you can get that through your library or Audible, however you listen to audiobooks. So I listened to it Friday going into work and coming home from work, and then I finished it up later that day because I have like an almost hour commute. So I kind of knocked it out like pretty simply in that day, and I really enjoyed it. And one thing I want to say before we go any further, we're not going to spoil anything past this episode. I know there might be people out there that probably want to get our thoughts on how certain things are foreshadowed or whatever. We're going to kind of keep it limited to this 42 minutes that we have here, which was called The Hedge Knight, which is that's what the novella is called, the first one. And it's written by Ira Parker, directed by Owen Harris, and it premiered January 18th, 2026 on HBO and HBO Max. I guess before we kind of get into like the play by play here and where we can kind of talk about how this differs from the novella and everything going on in this, just what were your overall thoughts after watching those 42 minutes of the first episode here?
Well, I don't really like overalls. They do kind of. Oh, you mean the over? Yeah, I got you now.
On the
No,
episode, sorry.
I got you. Sorry, I was really confused. But no, Jordan, I told you this. I texted you this. I thought it was kind of a hot take, but not really. As I started to kind of bask in it, and then also I started to kind of look at other people's reactions. Not that I, really gauge what I should think off of others, but I was like, that really felt like early Game of Thrones, where it just felt so right, and the comedy also with the intensity and the twist and the turns that it takes, and having listened to the novella after, it was like, man, like this is such a great adaptation from what he had written to what appears on screen, and I mean almost line by line for most of it. So it truly is a great show, and I told you this. I was like, this might become my favorite thing that comes out of the Game of Thrones world because it just has such a great feel to it.
Yeah, lower stakes, right? We're not
Mhm.
talking about White Walkers, dragons. I understand what you mean by very early Game of Thrones because I think people forget how funny Game of Thrones is.
Yes. Yep.
Honestly, um, because I feel like later in the show, obviously they were dealing with so much heavier things of like the White Walkers coming across the
Mhm.
wall. Um, yeah, all of that kind of stuff. While and then House of the Dragon has not been very funny. It's been very like, you know, lots of bad stuff happening in there. They haven't had a lot of time for comedy, but this one is a little bit more lighter. And I mean, and of course, this is like you said, a very good adaptation. I'll say as somebody that's read the full thing so far is um it that comedy doesn't just come from them being like, we're going to make it a lighter tone. It is right from George R. R. Martin's, pen that this is a little bit more of a lighter take as we're focusing not on like this worldwide um, thing where we're seeing characters in King's Landing, characters in Winterfell, characters in Essos. We are focused on one character's point of view, and that's Dunk. And then we get introduced to Egg later, of course, but the point of view from the book and from the show so far has been just through Dunk's perspective. So it does feel a little bit more like you get, and I think also just his earnestness that comes across on the page and on the screen is something that makes you kind of warm to it a little faster. Um, I would say he's very similar to somebody like a Ned Stark or Jon Snow, where they are very honorable, but he's just so much less experienced in that regard and not as confident as probably those characters. But I enjoyed it
Yeah,
as well.
he sees a world through a very optimistic lens. Even though he comes from tough beginnings, I think he sees the world as a place where he is trying to find his way, obviously, but I think he sees the good in people. And you really do see that come to life in the episode.
So we were introduced to. Oh, I froze. Okay, now we're good.
You're back.
We are introduced to Dunk at the beginning of the show here. It's raining. He's burying Sir Arlen Pennytree, who had just passed away. He gets this nice little I don't know, like eulogy statement here about hoping that there should have been a maester here to be able to do this, right? There should have been or a septon or whatever. Like it should have been somebody else here to have some words, but it's pretty much just him and the three horses. We also get then what I would say is probably the most controversial of the stuff here, right? Which is the Game of Thrones theme starting to rise up as he is he does this funny thing too, where he grabs the sword and he's acting like a City Watch member, and he just says, like, "Stop raping, sir!
Stop raping, sir! Please!"
And then he's like, "Oh, this fits my hand as well as his," and we start hearing the epic theme song, and we're thinking we're cutting into like the title sequence, and instead we cut to Dunk by the tree pooping. With a robin watching him. If he was trying to hide himself, he didn't do a good job. Because we see full butt and poop coming out of there.
I was like
laying on this?
Dude, I'm laying in bed watching this on my phone. I've got my headphones in, and I'm just dying and asking, like, what are you laughing at? I was like, you got to see this. I've seen so many reactions to this, Jordan, and it is so, I mean, up and down the spectrum of like, loved it, hated it, didn't need to see it. But I think it, if you take it aside for what it is, I think it's a really, really great statement as to the audience is expecting that swell of music that we are so accustomed to hearing with Game of Thrones, where it's these epic battles and dragons and all sorts of backstabbery. And here we are with Duncan. And it's going to be a totally different kind of atmosphere. And I think it's a totally different take and tone that this story is going to have. And it wanted to set that up. And I think it was brilliant. I know George didn't really care much for it because did you see the quote where he was like, he had watched it and he was like, what is this? And Ira Parker was like, Ira Parker's like, well, I think it fits for what it's supposed to. And he goes, well, I didn't really agree with the poop scene.
Yeah. I mean, so I've seen a variety of reactions to this because I think some people are reading into it whatever they want, right? Like, for me, I wasn't like, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It was just like, I was in the middle of eating lunch, actually. I was like, not really what I want to see when I'm eating. But some people have taken it as a shot at House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones because of the theme song, and then being like, oh, they're shitting on the theme song and like that kind of thing. No, it's your point of it is not that type of show. So Ira Parker said it's him hearing in the script, it says he hears the hero song playing in his head as he's holding the sword, but he's got like this and he didn't think it was going to be the Game of Thrones theme song at first. It was just like any sort of heroic theme, but then they're like, yeah, why not just use the main theme that everybody's expecting, right? But then instead of it being cool and awesome, he's got a little bit of a nervous stomach. He's a little sick thinking about this kind of stuff, so he starts having an upset stomach and going to the bathroom. So there's some people out there that have taken it a totally different way, but I can also understand if you were also eating lunch or dinner at the time and did not like that. I think I had kind of been spoiled that poop was going to happen. Somebody said, I think it was some sort of quote out there of being like, that poop scene was real poop or something. And I was like, the horses are going to poop. I thought horses. Yeah. Like, that's what my thought was. Yeah. Not Dunk.
Yeah. I love this first scene too, Jordan, because it really, I mean, it shows so much of what Dunk is. I mean, this is obviously someone he deeply cares about, and we get the story of who this person is that he's burying
through flashbacks, which is kind of a first for Game of Thrones.
And it's storming as he's digging this hole, and then it goes far enough to show that like it is coming down hard, and then it goes forward into the story, but he's still there. He's laying underneath the tree. It's sunny. It's totally different weather. So it shows that a lot of time has passed.
Yeah, he's been sitting
and
there
I love
thinking.
that he's because like you can't dig a hole. Like so many shows would have been like, oh, he dug that hole and like it's still raining. It took him 2 minutes to dig it and throw the guy into it. Like
I've said this on a podcast. I think on one of these podcasts, I don't remember which one, but I totally mentioned that. Like whenever you see like the if you're listening to like true crime stuff or whatever, a lot of these bodies are found in shallow graves is because people think they can dig the 6-foot grave and then they can't because it takes forever or they're sore and they're like, this is enough. And it's never enough. They get caught.
That's a really good point.
But yeah, so like he took the time to dig a little bit deeper than I'd say most criminals. but it took him a while. And he's also sitting there thinking what to do. In the book, they were already headed for Ashford Meadow. It's not clear in the show, but they were going to the tourney. But Sir Arlen got sick, got a chill, as they say, on the way, and succumbed to it. Dunk will later tell everybody that he was knighted by Sir Arlen before he passed. But at this point, Dunk is sitting here thinking, what can I do? I can, sell the horses and I could eat for a year or two, but then what? Right? That doesn't set him up for like long-term success. That's very much that like teach a man to fish or give a man a fish type of scenario, right? Like, all right, you get your money for it or you get your fish. But then once you're done that meal, how are you getting your next meal? And in that case, he's like, I would have nothing then. I wouldn't even have anything to barter. Right. So he decides, after holding the sword, to go to the tourney, which is at Ashford Meadow, which just sounds like a beautiful place.
Yes, it feels very Shire-esque. But I wanted to ask you about, like, how about that scene where he's having those flashbacks where he's starting to have that, where he's starting to, like, talk about what Sir Arlen was to him, and he's talking about like, you were a true knight and you only beat me when I did, you never beat me unless I deserved it, pretty much.
Right, except for that one time.
Multiple times where he smashes his head and he hits his head.
It was that was another funny bit where they like, cut to smack, smack,
And one was real recent, Jordan. Like he's sitting there and there's like flames on the ground and it shows him like smacking this tall Duncan, Sir Tall. But it's I really enjoyed that whole thing, and it was because then it shows, Jordan, there's a point in Game of Thrones where that's actually talked about, where it talks about Duncan getting hit because of the end boy stealing the pie. So it was pretty interesting. All of these nods to the original.
There is a few references to Duncan the Tall in Game of Thrones. There's actually a scene where I think Jaime and Joffrey are looking at a book, and Joffrey mentions there's like 4 or 8 pages dedicated to Duncan. And there's a big one we'll get to later down the line here, and a couple other relatives here. But we get on his way here, he's going to stop at a tavern, and he meets Egg, who is this young bald boy outside the tavern. Dunk mistakes him for the stable boy at this point, and tells him, take care of the horses.
Great part.
Yeah, because I mean, Egg immediately gives it to him during this stretch, and the second time when he goes back in and sees Egg on top of the horse.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm Sir Dunk, and he's like, I know all knights, all the important ones or all the good ones. But as he goes into the inn, we see it's pretty much deserted. Everybody is, as the innkeeper says, is already going towards Ashford Meadow for the tourney. But there is just one other customer who is a drunk who wakes up and says, I dreamed of you. Stay the fuck away from me, you hear? So, Logan, I ask of you, do you have any thoughts? Because I'm sure you haven't, if you haven't read past it then, any thoughts on what this means or who this person is?
I know who this person is,
okay. So sidestep that question.
Yeah.
But what do you think do you think that means?
It was interesting because I was like, when I first watched this, I was like, what? Because I was like, I'm not really thinking clearly of like who I know is in this show, in this story. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, maybe he's just drunk. It's the coin that he slaps down.
Yes.
That I'm like, okay, he's somebody.
It's a gold dragon.
Yes.
Which is a rich coin. Part of their capital, right? In Westeros.
Yeah. This is not a person that's supposed to be drunk in an inn like this. Right. That's what I got from it.
Right. And what do you think of the dreaming? Like, do you think obviously they don't mean it in like a fun, sexy way. They mean it in like
No,
a
I
nightmare way.
had I had a dream of you that it definitely in the music too, Jordan. It had that like, no, this person really did see this person in kind of like a dream vision kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
and that's yeah, that's kind of where I left that because I was like, okay, I think I know who this is. So
Yeah. There are certain people that can
mhm.
have visions and dreams, and we've been introduced to those characters in the lore
Many of them,
before. Yeah.
yeah.
So there you go. But Dunk is done eating. Then he's going to go out to the stables. We see Egg on top of the horse, acting like a knight. And he Egg wants to squire for him and all that, and he just says no. He thinks though, because he walked in and the innkeeper says, "Hey, was my boy there? Sometimes he's not there. Like, did he take your horses or get you set up?" So he thinks she's talking about Egg. So he
Mhm.
says, "Oh yeah, he was out there." But we later learn, of course, that he says he is from King's Landing. So this wasn't his mom. He later says his mom is dead. So uh some confusion here with Egg and what Dunk is thinking, who Egg is and everything. So but what'd you make of their dynamic so far? I think they've been very in the book and on screen so far. It's always tough to cast kids, I feel like, but I think they found a good little dynamic between the two actors here.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of their, um, when they do the
Press.
promos and the press and stuff, and they've interviewed. Is it Clafley? That's the what is the? I think
Claffey, Peter
that's his last
Claffey
name. Yes,
plays
thank you.
Sir Dunk. Yep.
Yes, and he was talking about, I think it's Ansel is the little boy, um, and they were talking about how he's got an old soul, and this kid, I mean, Jordan, this kid, I was like, man, like, I've seen a lot of kids in Game of Thrones, and I'm a big Stranger Things fan, and we've seen it through Harry Potter, we've seen him through these, child actors. This kid's like really good. I mean, just the banter he has back and forth with Dunk, and he does feel like a little wise man, and I think the baldness really puts on that it kind of feels like a little monk almost. Like he's very
Yeah, yeah.
smart and he's very wise beyond his years. You can tell he's come from a background where he knows things. He's seen things, and just some weird interactions, Jordan, that I picked up on between what he says. Like the King's Landing thing was a flag for me, just because I was like, that's weird. Like I know bad things happen in King's Landing, and you could be from Flea Bottom and King's Landing, just as Duncan is.
And
But
then
it's
he
like,
says he's not, right?
but then he says he's not, right? So it's like, okay, this kid's come from somewhere that doesn't want him. So that's kind of strange. Like, is he a stowaway? Like, where did he come from? So there's still that mystery. But Jordan, this dynamic I think is going to carry the show big time. It definitely has all those good feels of like Steve Dustin, Grogu, Mando. Like it has that same kind of like elderly authoritative figure
Yeah.
who also has a very soft spot for the young kid that seems to be lost in his ways.
Yeah, Dexter Soul Ansel is
Thank you. Yeah.
he also played young President Snow in the a
Oh,
ballad of
wow.
songbirds
Yeah,
and snakes
that
or
makes
whatever.
sense because the blonde hair that he has when he's got the hair
Yeah.
on.
Um but yeah, no, their dynamic has been very good. He wants to go with Dunk. Dunk says no, and he leaves. He tosses him a copper, right?
That's a great
And
moment.
says like, because he doesn't pick it up. He's like,
Yeah,
I know you'll pick
and
it up
I
as soon as I leave. And the
right.
camera, obviously, when he's walking away, shows that he does not move at all to pick this thing up. So
And another thing too that I noticed, and I thought it was brilliant, was that it pans into the coin to show you that it's not the same coin that the guy in the end
yeah,
had
this
put
is much
down.
less money than the
Yes.
gold dragon. Yeah. So Dunk is going to go to Ashford Meadow. He's going to try to get enlisted into the tourney, and he gets denied entry. since he cannot provide a witness of being a knight. The enlister guy also like bullshits him about this Ashford chair. That sounds like, I've seen people say it sounds like a thing that would really be in the real Game of Thrones. Like, you know, put
Jordan,
him
I
on
thought
this
it was
thing.
real. Like when he's
Yeah,
explaining it,
yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh. Oh man. And then he goes, I'm just fucking with you. It's like,
Yeah.
dang.
He's like,
Oh,
we don't really care if you're lying or not, but
yes.
here's the thing. Real big important people are here, and I
Yeah.
have to kind of weed out the like bad apples so nothing bad happens, like these really big important lords is essentially what's going on.
Yeah, and going back like just a little bit, I thought it was a great point that the innkeeper that was there, that she had mentioned the fact that like no jousting that I've ever known has changed the prices of eggs, alluding to the fact that like all these knights go to these places like the Meadow to have these jousting battles and drink and get drunk and sleep with women and have these big parties, but also have these competitions, Jordan. And it's all about, you know, status and
It
which
does not
house is better,
affect the
and it doesn't
common
affect
folk,
anything, yes, that the
which
common folk
is
has to deal with.
kind of goes back to Game of Thrones. If we think back
Mhm.
to Ned and Robert's dynamic, when Ned is the hand of the king and Robert wants to throw like a tourney, and he says like, you know, Ned's kind of like, why? Like, this is
Yeah,
not like we're spending
yeah,
money on something that doesn't help anybody, essentially. So
yeah.
it's kind of harkening back to that a bit. Um, so, uh, you know, but the guy does mention like, hey, there might be other knights here that can vouch for Arlen Pennytree, and then you know that would in turn vouch for you. And Dunk thinks of Manfred Dondarrion, because Pennytree had helped Dondarrion's father. Now, of course, this
Mhm.
is a relative to Beric Dondarrion, who we are very familiar with in the Game of Thrones era. Um, but he tries to go visit Manfred, and he is napping in the middle of the afternoon.
That's a great scene though with Plumber, like up in that tower when he's trying to decide if Dunk is fit enough and if he's trying to weed out this bad apple, and entering he hits his head because he's 6'5" and a
Yeah,
monster
and
amongst all.
exiting.
Yes, and exiting. And then as he's exiting Jordan, it was fascinating because he was the plumber guy goes, you know, you're going to have to ransom away your horses and everything you own pretty much if you lose. And he goes, yes, I know that. And then as he's walking away, he goes, and coin. And he goes, do you have coin? And he goes, no. And he's like, wait, what do you mean you don't have coin? He goes, well, actually, don't worry about it. Like, I'm
Yeah,
going to actually take care of it. Like, very, I was like, dang, like, he's very confident in his skill. Like, we don't see his skill throughout this whole episode. So
right,
it's still
right.
making me wonder, like, is Dunk actually going to be like this super threat? Or is he just going to
So
show his inexperience?
it's a little different from the book. So this line here from the enlister guy
Mhm.
is pretty much to explain to the viewer how these tourneys go.
Yes.
This is stuff that in the book Dunk is kind of thinking to himself of like, oh my god, if I lose, I'm
Yep.
gonna have to give up my armor, my money, my horse, my sword. And in the book at this point, he's already sold one of his
Mhm.
horses. I don't know if they're going to go that route in this or not, but um, so that is some. And then his plan is to buy the horse back when he wins. Um, I don't know if it is as much confidence as much as he feels like he needs to win or else everything goes to shit anyway. So like I feel like it's almost this false confidence of I'm not going to need to pay it off because I have to win because
Yeah.
it's the only way that I move up in the world here and I need this to happen. It's almost like
That's a good point.
willing it like manifesting
Yeah.
it to existence.
That's a
Um
great point.
because okay, so I guess what is your take on this? Because I don't think it is clear at this point. I've taken Dunk at his word that Sir Arlen Pennytree knighted him, but it seems like he did not come to the idea of doing that until he held the sword, and he was kind of wondering how he was going to, how he was going to live. Originally, he was thinking I could sell the horses, but that won't really get me far. If he was already a knight by Sir Arlen, would he be thinking it that way? Is this a lie from Dunk to try to further himself? Because it seems like when the guy is talking about the Ashford chair, he's a little worried that he is caught in a lie and this is going to actually happen to him.
Yeah, that is a good point. I've thought that same thing, and my thought is that they were knighting him, or like he's in the process of being a knight, but I feel like his time as a knight had not truly begun much with Arlen around to really show him how to be a knight. And I think that's where the hesitancy is, because yes, you're right. Like when he's confronted multiple times in this episode about lying or like not really telling the full truth, he gets kind of like, whoa. And he gets this way later on with Baratheon, but he's like, yeah, I'm a little shaken when people question like what I'm telling them, but he doesn't really shake on this one. And I don't know if it's like he's scared, but I mean, Plumber really scares him in this instance. So like, he's not really royalty. This Plumber, he's a game master. And I just, yeah, that's a really good point. I guess I hadn't really thought a ton about it, but yeah, I'm thinking I agree with you. I think it's more of like I don't think he's really lying about being a knight. I think he's there. I just don't think he's very confident in his abilities.
Because it seems to be actually like a debate online through the first novella if he's actually been knighted. There will be other instances throughout the season where I think we can probably touch back onto that, but just something in the first part of that novella when he is burying Sir Arlen, he's not really thinking at all about how he's just been knighted right before this guy died. So it is kind of interesting if he is lying to further himself, because there are other characters that are lying about who they are in this. So it would be very like a good parallel with other characters throughout this.
That's a really solid point there.
We also get as he's leaving Sir Manfred, who is napping, he runs into Stefan Fossaway and his cousin Raymond Fossaway, who are fighting each other. These lines come straight out of the novella about, my cousin is rotten to the core, is what Raymond says about Stefan. And Stefan wants to fight Dunk, who declines. That's another thing people use to try to say that he's not been knighting, is that he does decline the invitation here of engaging. I think there could be other reasons for that, mainly because Stefan looked like he knew what he was doing. And we later learned from Raymond that Stefan tries to fight people that he might face in the tourney to maybe give them a little bit of a injury that gives him a edge during the actual tournament instead. But what'd you make of the Fossaways?
Yeah, I would say that Stefan is your very typical look down his nose at people Game of Thrones kind of character. Mm-hmm. Like I think Game of Thrones does this brilliantly. I think back to the person I think back to the most, obviously the two that I think back of looking down their nose at people. Joffrey is one, Jamie in the very beginning, but also I guess you could throw Littlefinger in there too. It's very like this pompous, like I am of the house of whatever it might be, the Fossaways in this instance, and you are no match for me. And he makes mention of that, Jordan. He clearly makes mention of the fact that, and this is an ongoing thing, because even the girls that are how would you call them, like
ladies of the night?
Ladies of the night. Thank you. That's what I was trying. I was trying not to use the other word because it's very derogatory, but the ladies of the night were saying about how he like had a look to him, how he looked like he lived in the hedges. And then you get Fossaway to also mention you smell awful, like you look like you come out of the bushes.
Oh yeah, and so did the list master.
Yes, they all
he says, if he doesn't, if Sir Manfred doesn't remember you,
he'll smell it. Yeah,
yeah,
he'll look and remember his smell.
No,
Yep. But yeah, no, Stefan is obviously going to be an antagonist going forward. That we'll definitely have some kind of square off between these two again, I think. But I love Raymond. Like I feel like Raymond is Raymond's that little undercutting brother that's like the actual one that has morals. Like I feel like he's definitely has the morals and the high ground on his cousin.
Yeah, something else that just when you're talking about his talk with the two prostitutes, it's he is so innocent and like such a nice guy that when they're picking on him, he's like, "Do you have to be mean like that?" Like
like
they're like, "Oh yeah, sorry." Like it makes me feel bad for Dunk because he is he's just so pure.
You also bypass the whole. This has been an ongoing conversation. One of the people there is very interested in having sex with a dead corpse.
Yeah, because the woman is acting like a dead corpse.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's great. But like,
we think that is Manfred who is into
I think it is. Yeah,
that's what I think too.
He gives me that skeezy like. And also the girls, like you said, like they like you can tell it flips 180 because then they go take care of yourself. Like
yeah.
You only got that body, like take care of yourself.
Yeah,
so.
They probably have run into somebody like him that's or people more like Manfred that are kind of more like a Stefan, right, where they're kind of a little bit more asshole, I would say, and then they're used to just kind of maybe seeing what happens to those people, but they've been coming to these tourneys. They probably know that like I think they mentioned stuff about like how you were saying with the take care of your body and stuff. It's kind of like a hey, like these are big knights that are fighting here. Like don't get yourself killed or injured for trying to take these people on. If you
they're not worth it. That's what they're saying. Yeah.
Just like the innkeeper with the it hasn't changed the cost of eggs. It is very more like they just like doing this stuff as like a sporting thing.
Macho.
Just get out of here, dude.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
So he's gonna go back to his little camp and take a bath and try to get his clothes a little bit cleaner, and he's gonna go head back to Manfred because they told him to come back at evening fall. He comes back and Manfred is still napping. So he does not get to talk to Manfred. But he does start walking through this nice little tourney setup and sees a puppet show, which was incredible, by the way.
This is so cool.
Not how it is in the books. The one edition I also have the Kindle version through the library. And it's an illustrated edition. But just like the way that it was described in the novella, it seemed like I was thinking marionettes, puppets. And that's what it is in the illustrated version.
Yeah.
This thing is like Maleficent's dragon in the fantasy parade at Disney World with the fire legit, and everything.
Yeah. It's got like scales and stuff. It looks real, like Jordan, I had it on my phone. If you look like further away, I was like, it looked real. It looked like they were actually corralling a dragon up there. It's pretty funny. It's good.
But Raymond, I was gonna say Raymond, but Dunk kind of has a nice little crush on this on this girl here. But as he walks out, he runs back into Raymond, who invites him into the Baratheon tent. And we get to meet the Laughing Storm, Lionel Baratheon. This is an original scene for the show. This is not in the book. With the dancing and the dinner. And we get, what did you think of Lionel as, I'm going to tell you right here, he is potentially the great-grandfather of Robert, Stannis, and Renly. What was your thoughts on the Laughing Storm?
Yeah, so I've listened to a lot of people talk about this, and Daniel Ings is who plays him. And there are so many people, Jordan, that have read the novellas, who know the lore, who have studied the lore, that say he is their favorite character in all of Game of Thrones. Like, so coming into this, I had a little, because I had prepped myself, because I wanted to know like the history that led from, because I was texting you, I wanted to know like kind of where we were 13 years after the Civil
Blackfire
War.
Rebellion.
Yeah, their last Civil War with the Targaryens. And so I was like, all right, I'm interested. So I was trying to look at all the family trees and stuff like that. And then I noticed the Baratheons, because in the trailer, you can see the antlers and you're like, well, I know those. Like, that's a
Yeah.
Baratheon house. So coming into this, when I saw him, Jordan, I don't know where Daniel Ings is from, but he looks very familiar. And he has a very like Johnny Depp, like kind of charismatic,
I
very
think they
like,
told him like in the script, I thought it said like a mix of Jack Sparrow and
mhm.
something.
He is, Jordan, this scene, like I was watching it back today. I was like, I just want to keep rewatching this whole scene, because the two of them together was incredible. Like, this is one of the best scenes that I've seen in TV for a very long time. Like, this is such a great scene in this Baratheon tent. So I was thrilled when I saw him. I was very interested to see what Lionel was going to be all about. And at first, I was like, okay, typical how I feel like that he would have acted, but then it flipped script real quick.
Very similar. Well, I mean, I would say he's so close to Robert.
Yes.
Like if Robert was young, this is the
Yeah.
type of vibe I think you're getting with just having fun, being a little cocky,
Mhm.
getting drunk. We know Robert loved to drink. It's all those type of
Yeah.
things that I feel like
Hmm.
makes him, compared more to like Renly or Stannis, feels very more like a Robert Baratheon feel to him.
His serious side had a little Stannis in it. Like, it had a little bit of the, you're kind of like, do I like this person at all? Like, is he redeemable in any way? It's very like straightforward at first.
Yeah, because we have what Dunk is invited to this thing from Raymond. Raymond
Mhm.
kind of leaves him alone, and you're sitting there. He's sitting there awkwardly, not knowing
Eat
anybody
his
else,
little croissant.
and he starts eating, and Lionel kind of calls him over, and they have this conversation, which is just a really great conversation where it feels like Lionel's kind of sussing out who this guy is, who this really tall guy is, and then they start really broing out, right? Like,
Yeah.
Dunk starts dancing, and then we have that almost like a game they're playing where it's like trying to stomp on each other's
Yeah.
toes and stuff. But one thing that is this is another very Baratheon thing, I would say, or a good guy thing, is when Dunk steps on his and he loses that game. You think, oh no, like this is something like Joffrey would hang you for,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like,
You'd be dead. Yep.
but Lionel loves it. He's like, all right, and they're
He
like pushing each
pushes
other.
him. Yeah.
They're like having just a ball. Dunk is wearing the crown with the, at one point, like just a really good time between these two guys.
I love when he calls him over the table. There's so many great lines in it, but like when he's like, he's just trying to figure out, he's like, why do you slouch? And he's like, what do you mean, why do I slouch? He goes, you're tall. What do they call you? He goes, Sir Duncan, the tall. And he goes, yes, you're tall. You tall men get punched more than short men do. And he's like, you know why that is? And he's basically like, well, no, I don't know if I've ever been punched. And he's like, just like, don't slouch in front of me. Why? And then he goes, why the hell are you in my tent? And he goes, supper.
Yeah.
And he's like, that makes sense. It's like very Baratheon. Like, he's grilling him, and then all of a sudden he turns and he's like, okay, this guy really isn't up. But my favorite line, Jordan, it's very Baratheon the way he says it, is that like men typically only want two things. They either want your head or they want your help. Which one are you here for? And he goes, that's what he's like, supper.
Yeah.
Neither. Like, I'm just hungry. So
I
that's where
want
I
your
think,
help to feed me.
yeah, that's why I think Lionel's like, okay, we can be cool. But then you're right. They have that moment where they're dancing. And then when they're sitting there, Jordan, another great line, he was like, hold on, let me pull it up because I was like, okay. Because it was one of my favorite lines that he had said. Oh yeah, there it is. Oh wait, no. It's like the men, how many men are in? Dang it, where did it go? Oh yeah, within every man are many men. And then
Yeah.
when he's talking about like, and it was interesting because Duncan, there's those two sides. There's that, where he's got that allegiance to Arlen, where he's got that kind of want to be successful, want to be somebody in this world, rising from where he came from. But there's also that other part of him where he's very hesitant and he doesn't really know his way or place in the world, where Baratheon is just built of all the Baratheons before him. And he's very aware of what that is, the drunk, the happy, the powerful. So he knows where
Right.
he is in life, but Duncan does not.
So he does finally get to go meet Manfred Dondarrion, who does not remember Arlen. He had like 800 some knights fight for him or something. So like one guy doesn't really stick out. So he goes back to his campsite, and this is where we see Egg has arrived. He, cleaned his clothes. He set up the fire. He would have raised the pavilion if he had one. And this is where we'll also learn Egg is from King's Landing, because Dunk says, I'm going to take you back home. It's like you'd have to go all the way to King's Landing.
Yeah.
He thinks he only has to take him to that tavern. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, okay, never mind. And he says, are you from Flea Bottom? No. But Dunk does say he'll let him squire. This is also where we get that his name is Duncan, actually, because we don't even know if that's true. In the book, he says that Arlen had just always called him Dunk. And he'd been with Arlen for so long that, like, I guess he doesn't remember what his first name really was at this point. So, Egg says, is that short for Duncan? And he says, yeah, Sir Duncan the Tall.
Never heard of him. Do you
Yeah.
know every
Well,
night? Do you know every night in the Seven Kingdoms? The good ones.
Yeah.
He keeps saying he's going to cloud him in the ear too. He's going to punch him in the ear pretty much.
But he also says, "I'll never hit you unless if you deserve it." And
great callback, by the way.
Yes. And you'll always have clothes and food. And Egg is like, yay, and very excited. And they're starting to go to sleep underneath the sky. And they see a shooting star or a falling star, and Egg mentions how this is good luck, and that everybody else would have missed it because they're sleeping below silk, and that since they're sleeping outside of there, they can see the stars. And this, has Duncan think, oh, so the luck is just ours then.
Yeah. And
just a very nice, hopeful end of the episode as we look into what is to come. So do you have any thoughts on how this plays out since you stopped it at a certain point?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think they're going to have to. I mean, just guesses or predictions, I guess, would be. I would almost say that that he's going to get backing from Baratheon in some way. Like, I feel like he's gonna be like, no, I know who he is. Like, I feel like that's where that end was. I feel like that's kind of where he was going with that. Like, I was like, I don't know. I don't think Manfred's just gonna up and be like, oh yeah, no, now I remember him, unless something happens to where he, wagers something to get that approval. But I mean, the King's Landing thing with Egg is very interesting to me. Something that was pointed out on X. I know a little bit more obviously, but it's also like there's a lot of different Easter eggs that exist in this. Like you can go through and look at all of the flags through all of the different houses that are there. I think it's interesting that if you look at the coin, the dragon is obviously looks like the symbol for the Targaryens. And if you know anything about the show, if you've watched any trailers, you know that there are Targaryens in this. They're not just going to disappear. So you're going to get, pretty sure you're going to get nods to a lot of the houses that we obviously love and know very well. But I'm interested to see, but it's very interesting because to me, Egg is the one thing that was pointed out, that Egg uses my lord, which is not typical for somebody that is the lower feeding of the people. That's usually used by people that are around very high up people. And it's the same instance when, who is it that Arya is talking to? It's oh man, when she first is talking to the thing and she goes, "Oh my lord," and he goes, "That's not what a common folk would say. You need to learn what common folk would say." I can't forget who she's talking to.
You're also thinking, okay, let's say if Egg is telling the truth,
that
he's from King's Landing, not from Flea Bottom.
I
mean, there's not many other places there.
He's come from somewhere.
Right.
I just feel like there's too many ties to like, it's very strange to me.
Yeah. So that will be something explored later. So you think he'll get backing from somebody and be able to enter the tournament as we head in here? Just some quick notes here. No, I think I said them all really. Obviously, the main character is Dunk. There's references to him in Game of Thrones. There's a reference about Egg in Game of Thrones as well. So if you really want to figure that out, you can go back and watch all Game of Thrones and figure out where that reference is. Or you can wait a couple weeks. And then Manfred Dondarrion, as we said, is related to Beric Dondarrion from Game of Thrones. And then Lionel Baratheon. There's not a full family tree of the Baratheons, but he is believed he would be around the right age to be the great grandfather of Robert, Stannis, and Renly. They could also be like adjacent to that, where it's like his brother's kids could be his brother could be the great grandfather of Robert, Stannis, and Renly, but it's that age range where that's where around he would be. This takes place almost dead in the middle between House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones. So it's like 80 some years after House of the Dragon and like 98, almost 90 years before Game of Thrones. Actually, what I was reading is that, or I heard on another podcast, Walder Frey was born a year before this event takes place. So there is little baby Walder Frey around here. That's how old he is supposed to be in Game of Thrones. So Walder is around.
I will say, for those that are looking to avoid being spoiled, I would not and do not suggest watching season 1 of Game of Thrones at any point if you do not want to be spoiled, because I've seen a lot of things where a certain someone where we get a lineage of things, and it's mentioned a lot to a certain character in the first season. And so avoid at all costs season 1, even episode 1, I think it is, or 2, when it starts to take place when this person is being told about the history of whatever this is. So avoid. I got that thing too. They were like, don't watch Game of Thrones unless you want to be spoiled somewhat on what's going on.
It's the same thing with like Game of Thrones. Also spoiled House of the Dragon, but there was these big gaps between it where they're just lines of dialogue that, like, if you don't watch it immediately over and over and over again, that you're probably not picking up on. But yeah, anything else about this episode?
Jordan, just the beauty of what they've done, right? With
music
Ashford
was good
Meadows.
Too. Music was good.
Absolutely.
Very like
Romer, I think, is the composer. He's great.
Kind of reminded me more of like Howard Shore's Lord of the Rings.
Yes, I agree.
Shire-esque. Like it's chill music. It's not like the heroic music that we're used to. It
feels very night-esque, if that's weird. Like if you picture like the night in the medieval times, like this is the music they'd be writing to. It's perfectly done, and like you said, I think it it does have resemblance to some of the stuff in Game of Thrones when it's more upbeat, when it's early on in the early parts of the seasons. But also, Jordan, like just like going back to Ashford Meadow, like this is they were very purposeful in not using green screens because House of Dragon does use a lot of green screens, obviously, tons of it. Where Jordan, like this is like a full on. I mean, it feels like somebody just took their camera out there and were filming this like on an iPhone. Like
I
that's
think
what
this is also the first time they filmed in Scotland. I think it was for the first time since Game of Thrones, because I think for House of the Dragon they mostly had just been filming in, or maybe it was Ireland they were filming in, but they were filming mainly in Spain, sound stages, and England for House of the Dragon. So it does feel a little bit of a different vibe, right?
Yeah. But if people are like wondering if like obviously you got into this, or like people are, I honestly feel like this was more like you said, like this felt very much more Lord of the Rings. Like it felt much more like just a feel good, has humor, but also has that high enough stakes to where it's like, all right, what's coming up next? And then if you watch the 2-minute trailer after each of these episodes that they do, it just, there's a lot coming. Like this is going to get pretty high stakes for our character. I mean, if you think about it in the grand scheme of who the person is, and just another thing too, like I've gone through and I've looked at like different reviews of it, and like it's already at an 8.5 on IMDb, and it's got tons of good ratings. I think it's over 6,000 or 7,000 now. It's got quite a good amount. The biggest complaint, and again, like obviously, if you listen to this podcast this far in, you've obviously watched it or are interested enough to where you listen all the way through without watching it. Now you're spoiled on it. But I just, again, I'm happy that Game of Thrones is back to a point where, I mean, House of the Dragon is a good show. I think people, for the most part, a majority of the people like it and rate it pretty well. Obviously, they've got their things with it. But with this one, I mean, I've seen so many negative reviews, Jordan, about like, well, this isn't my Game of Thrones because it's not got dragons. It's not got like the epic battles. I'm like, that is not what this is. And it will not be that. Like, it's just not that kind of show.
For anybody that needs to know what this show is, it is this. It is focused on Dunk and Egg. They're based off novellas George wrote, and each one kind of takes place at a particular place. So they hint to it at the end of this season where they'll be going. I'm not going to say it here, but
yeah.
This story takes place at Ashford Meadow and does not really leave there at all, right? So when I've seen people complain about the run times,
oh yes,
look, because this one was pretty standard, 40 some minutes long. The rest are going to be in the 30s because this, like I said, 80-page story, 2-hour 45 audiobook. There's not a lot here to stretch. Even though there were some new scenes in this, we also don't want just new scenes filled up. So this one is very understandable to be this short. Like House of the Dragon has to, that's more of a history book, so it's a little drier, so it has to fill in more stuff so they have more room to do. But this is pretty like by the book, boom, 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 boom. And it's narrative, so it's gonna pretty much stick to that for this season. Maybe next season would be a little longer because I heard the second novella is a little longer and can probably fit a better flow like that. But this season's only 6 episodes. The remaining 5 are like 30 some minutes long. I really wonder how people will react to that weekly. I think on a binge, it'll be probably really great for people because it'll be so focused. It'll be so quick of a watch. But it is what it is. I'm just happy to be kind of back in this world and seeing what we're seeing and it being a little bit of a lighter story.
Yeah, closer as well to, like, it's nice to be able to reach out 80 and 90 years each direction and be able to connect to like, oh wow, like this is great grandpa that we're talking about, or this is, this is a great grandchild of so and so. And Yeah, no, like it I mean, it has such a nice feel. Like even like the title card that came across,
Mhm,
like
mhm.
that was just it was so subtle. It wasn't like the big Game of Thrones logo. It was just a real nice font. Still same kind of font, obviously, but like
Still
it
felt
just had
very
nice.
Lord of the Rings, like when it
Yes,
pops
that's
up
what
with
I
Fellowship
that's
of the Ring and
yes.
stuff. It feels
And just
very
the
that.
it's the landscape too.
It is
Like
too. It's
Game
the
of Thrones
green.
had never really been much about the landscape of things except for like
Yeah.
King's Landing and these big cities. And then obviously like kind of cool mythical places, especially in the House of the Dragon where they're trying to build like these crazy looking sets and stuff.
Right, right.
But, like, this feels so folky, like, it feels like you've gone out with your best friend on a good
Yeah.
old horseback ride, and, like, that's what I love. It feels very Frodo and Friar or, the Friar. It felt like,
Prior John.
it felt like it very much so like this Robin Hood, but not he's not, like, an awful person kind of thing. But, yeah, no, it very much feels like, just a fun, cozy show, and like you said, I just it's funny to me that the generation that is growing up now, and even my generation, your generation, our age, like, people love short form anyway, like, nowadays. So, like, I'm so baffled when people are like, "Oh, these are an hour long." Like, dude, I don't I sit with a many of people that cannot watch an hour straight without looking at their phones.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
they just can't anymore. Like, movie theaters, you go to movie theaters now and people are on their phones because they can't focus that long. So, it's just mind-blowing to me whenever people complain about run times because I'm like, that's fine. Like it's always been like what Jordan, if we went back in time with these people 10 years ago, they'd be shocked to know that How I Met Your Mother was only 30 minutes long and every week it had a new episode.
Yeah, well, the good thing about back then is shows
Jeez.
had so many episodes,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so the one thing I've done to really help myself focus on this type of stuff is when I'm watching something, a lot of times what I've started to do while I'm at home is put my phone on do not disturb and flip it over.
Mhm.
And this is going to sound kind of dumb, I guess, but sometimes what I do is we have these little like pillows on the couch, and I'll grab it and hold it and cross my arms with it, and it resists the urge for me to grab the phone.
Yeah. That's good.
The
That's
only
good.
thing I'll usually grab it for is look up IMDb if I see
Me
somebody's
too.
face and I'm like, I
Yep.
know that person or something.
Yep.
So I do that to really stop my fidgeting hands for instinctively reaching for it. And I've been able, I've always had good attention span, I would say, but like there were certain times where you're like, oh my God, I'm on my phone during this episode. And you're like, gotta put it down, and
Yeah.
on these type of shows where I'm really involved and we're doing podcasts, or if it's something I'm really into, I really just try to block all of that stuff out so I can focus on it, because it's very important
Yeah.
to understand what you're seeing, or else you get left with questions about plot holes that are not there. Okay, so we'll wrap it up there, I guess. Thank you, Logan, for coming on.
Yeah.
Do you want to share your podcast and where people can follow
Yeah.
you?
So I'm sure some people have come over from if they're listening on my feed, they've come over from the Screen Society podcast, which is part of the LogJam Media. I will cover similar show. I know Jordan's got a slew of co-hosts. I have just myself for right now. And I'll have Jordan obviously now on my feed just because we've kind of joined forces here on Supes and Sabers. But yeah, I'll be covering this show just because it's one that's in my realm. But right now I'm covering The Pit over on HBO as well. So those that are interested in that medical drama, I'm covering that on my podcast over there at the Screen Society Podcast. You can find us at the Screen Society Podcast over on any of your socials if you just type that in, or on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment anywhere you can find your podcast. But yeah, I'll be stealing this for my feed as well. And then whenever Jordan has me back, I'll make sure to share it on my feeds. But we're part of the same media on LogJam Media. So if you type that into Apple, I was just telling the people on my intro that if you typed in LogJam Media, now it populates very well on Apple and
And
Spotify.
Spotify,
It
yes.
pulls up all of our shows that are
Yeah.
linked to that account. So it's pretty cool. Jordan introduced that to me like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
it's a
wild.
way that I kind of link all the shows together, and Spotify also has really great things where you can recommend, like you can put like recommend this show, and if they go
Yeah.
to like the about page, it'll say like similar, and you can choose what goes there. And I
Yep.
usually do that for some of the new podcasts we launch as well on here. But at Supes and Sabers on all of our social media for this podcast. We have, Logan was just on for Stranger Things as well. We have coming up a news catch up for all of the DC news that has been coming out with the Batman Part 2 and Man of Tomorrow and the Supergirl trailer. Chris has been under the weather. He's finally on the mend. So the plan is for us to record that coming up and then get that episode out finally as a catch up there. So thank you all for watching or listening along. We will catch you next time here talking the next episode of A Night of Seven Kingdoms.